Hello. All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm actually just getting rolling here. Apologize. I'm a little bit late and still trying to get a few things set up here. But yeah, excited to talk about bases today. If you've got any questions about bases, please let me know. Love to see and tailor this this live stream actually basically on what questions people have in the chat. So okay, there we go. So, want to make sure I'm able to see this. Okay, and then we'll send out a message real quick that we are live. Oh, if my computer cooperates. Hello, Sai. Hello, June. All right, new draft. Sorry, everything on my computer is being slow currently. Hopefully the stream is coming through okay. All right. Cool. And guess what I'm sending out this message. Curious if anybody has experience with Obsidian bases, and if you have experience, what that experience is. It's not even available to the public yet. It's still in beta, technically, in the insider releases. So are people here familiar with it? Have you used it? Or are you just trying to get a feel for what's coming down the pike? I have a feeling it's going to be released before too long because it's actually pretty polished at this point. And hoping to share some of that and show you some of the stuff that you can do with this. All right. All right, the message has gone out, and now I will share Obsidian. So let's switch the view here. All right, and so here's Obsidian, and this is actually a separate thing that I've played with. This is a Kanban board, which happy to walk through how I set this up too. This is replacing the projects plugin. I think I talked a little bit about this last time. But the bases, what I really want to talk through today is this book ratings base. And for those who are new to my channel and aren't familiar with the creative work that I do, one of my projects is the Bookworm podcast, where we read a different self-help or productivity type book every couple of weeks. Sorry, the audio is probably pretty quiet there. Hopefully this is a little bit better. And we talk about a book, what we got out of it, share action items. So we've got some public accountability, and I really just discuss the big ideas that are in the book. And been doing that for something like 220 episodes now. Bookworm.fm is the website if that sounds like your jam. But I've been reading these books, and I have been taking notes using a little bit of a different method. So, for example, let's just look at A System for Writing by Bob Dotto. This is an actual note in Obsidian, and I'll show you how to put the base together, but just so you kind of understand what I was looking for here. I take notes by using MindNode, and I make a mind map for this. So I put the image of the book in the middle, and then I have the main sections of the book that I for the different branches here, and then chapters and big ideas from there. So I can zoom in here a little bit so you can kind of see what this looks like. Now, obviously this is inside of an Obsidian note, so this is a PDF. The introduction, I'll use the camera on my iPhone to capture key ideas from those books. And the idea behind this is actually that when you are reading these books and you're struggling with these ideas, you're trying to figure out how to make sense of these things for yourself. So you are trying to, line everything up from all these different books that you've read and decide what you really think about these things. And I think that helps you kind of make sense of stuff when you compare things alongside other things that you've read. Actually, it might be worth here, before we get too far into the basis thing, if people are interested in this sort of approach to book note taking, I have actually a reading masterclass that I've done previously, and I've got a few slides I could open up and just kind of walk through the philosophy here. I won't do that yet, but if you're interested in that sort of thing, then feel free to put that in the chat. But I see a lot of comments here about bases, and so that's probably the main reason that people are here, is they want to actually get into the Obsidian features. Aloha, Doc Rock, good to see you again. All right, so I'll just open up this presentation in the background. It's got to download because I have a lot of keynotes and don't have a lot of space on my Mac. So we'll let that download in the background. But let's just walk through the template here for these books. Okay, so I've got a note which has some metadata at the top, tags, author, rating. This is basically just 1 to 5 stars. And the cool thing about this is, for this metadata, it'll let you autofill from whatever you've previously used. So I can choose from 1 to 5 stars. The cover, that is a file that is downloaded actually automatically using another plugin called Book Search. And then the number of pages and the year that it was written, that also gets plugged in automatically via Book Search. I force myself, when I'm done reading these, to write a 3-sentence summary. I embed the PDF mind map, and then I also export, because this comes from MindNode, you can export this as Markdown as well. And so I will export this in, I have all the text here also. So I'll paste the text in, and the way this works, the first level header is notes, and then from MindNode, basically, by default, the branches are second level headers. And then depending on how you have this set up, there might be third level headers for the chapters. Otherwise, it's just straight up bullets, which are obviously, you can see, indented based on how far down the mind map they actually go. I have these automatic callouts that get applied. These are using a plugin called List Callouts, I believe. Here it is. Yep. Okay, so what this does is it looks for certain characters inside of bullets. So it's only going to apply to bullets that are in like one of those unordered lists. And then you can choose the color or the icon that gets applied. So I'm not using the icons. I'm actually just looking for the characters, and these are the emoji that I use as part of the emoji coding system. So I've been doing this inside of MindNode long before MindNode actually had tags. And so the key is key ideas. The light bulb is like little inspiration moments, kind of something that resonates at a deeper level. Because we talk about a lot of these books for Bookworm, I actually use this talking head icon for like the talking points I want to add to the outline. So when I'm done with the book, it's actually really easy to build out that outline. The quote bubble, this is actually a quote from the book that I want to remember. If there's a mention of another book, I will have the book icon and usually the name of it. The thread, I don't think I actually use this one all that often. I think this might have been for something different. For a while, I was trying to write my Twitter threads inside of Obsidian. So I think that's a leftover. But then this one, this is kind of the blown mind emoji. This happens very, very rarely inside of my my book notes, but when there's some statistic, for example, that really just blows my mind, I'll put that there. What that means is that when I go back through my notes, it's easier to kind of pick up those things because it applies that highlight behind the bullet here. So here's what the quotes look like. When I'm done with these, I always put a link to the person who said it, and then hashtag quote, that rolls it up then into a quote book. I'll try to open this and show you how this stuff all ties together. So this is using a beta plugin called Query Control to format a query, but you can kind of see what it does is it rolls up all the quotes and it puts them basically by source. This is going to populate for a long time, but you can kind of see what's happening here. It's from the note on the left here, and then it's putting the person and the hashtag quote. Basically what it's doing is it's just rolling up everything it can find in whatever notes that have that hashtag quote in that bullet, and then it puts that line inside of this note. So that's what's going on there. But yeah, this is how I put the notes in, and I like having this stuff. I do need to do a better job of connecting the ideas between these, but in the back of this, the fourth level of reading by Mortimer Adler from his famous book, How to Read a Book, that actually is kind of the foundation for this, where you are comparing these things from the different sources that you've read. So that's what's going on with this. Now, going back to the book database, what this is doing then is it is rolling up, it's creating a base off of all of the notes that are in the book notes folder, and then it's displaying them as cards, and it's showing the rating, the author, the pages, and the year, in addition to the cover image. Okay, so this is an actual base file itself. What's cool about bases is that you can choose the filters and the properties via the UI. So the filter here, you can see there's actually different views for this. Applying to all the views, where the file path starts with book notes. And the filters that you can use, there's actually quite a bit. So you can use file name, file base name, file full name, file path, file folder, file extension. There's a whole bunch of things that get added to the note as metadata that you maybe don't even see, like created time or modified time, file.m time. You can see all of the codes that are being used right here. File size, file links, file embeds, file tags, aliases, CSS classes, tags, and then there's a whole bunch of other like properties that I've got in here. So there's a whole bunch of stuff here, that you could use as a filter. What I've got here is just file path. File path starts with book notes. So everything that's in this book notes directory basically gets pulled in here. Now the views, you can choose between a couple different views. So for this one, I just have the cards view. But you can configure different views, and you can choose between two different layouts currently, table and cards. When you have a base and you have a filter applying to all views, it'll just roll up all the notes that meet the specific criteria. You can choose the card size. So right now it's set to 130. If I make it bigger, you can kind of see what happens. I'm going to actually put that back. The image property. So you can choose which specific property you want to use as the image. I know I have that set. That's why these images are showing up here. And then you can change whether it is going to show just zoomed in on this is what the cover actually looks like, or you can make it actually be contained inside of the top part there. I'm not sure which one of these I like better yet, to be honest. The cover, this is kind of nice because a lot of these books, the book cover images come in different sizes. I wish there were just standard sizes for book covers that were in that 9:16 roughly aspect ratio. But this actually looks a little bit more uniform, but this actually shows the whole book cover. So start with small steps. I believe that's Jill. I actually have been working very hard on this specific thing. I've actually used Doc Rock and Katie Hawk's they're the ones that basically convinced me to try live streaming. So I've been picking these topics, and I used the topic I selected for this one as a forcing function to get all these notes in a place where I could actually share them. So they're all added. Now there's 217 of them currently. I do have probably a few more that I could add here. I intend to make these public, however. So I actually do have all of the mind maps, the text files, OPML files, and what was the other one? I think maybe FreeMind. Those are all available inside my community, the library. So that is library.practicalpkm.com if people are interested in that sort of thing. It's currently $49 a month. You pay quarterly and you get access to all of my products, all of my courses, and then all of additional live events. Like I'll do accountability calls there. We'll do Q&A calls on some of the material that's in there. And I'm able to kind of provide like direct support via Zoom for people. It's a really cool, my favorite place on the internet. That's the place I'm trying to, invest a lot of my time and energy these days. But all the book notes are in there. And I mentioned that you could access all the products. There is a product, Life HQ, that has a bunch of these as well. So lifehq.practicalpkm has the details on that. There's 100 book notes in there currently. I'm about to add the rest of these. I also am updating everything in there to support the new bases feature once it becomes publicly available. So this is a pretty big database of book notes. And it's cool to go through the process of reading all of these and figuring out how all of this stuff connects. Now, I don't automatically make connections between all of the ideas that are in these books. I believe that kind of happens automatically in my head. And then when I force myself to sit down and write about something, that's usually when I can actually see the formal connections that would be between those different notes. So, a lot of times I just have the ideas in the notes and I'll add the connections when there really is something that I want to have like a historical record of. But if it just surfaces when I'm creating something, I'm not too worried about making sure that I go back and add all those connections. That's an important point, I think. I'm also planning with the library, by the way, to take this database and make this an Obsidian Publish site the moment that Obsidian Publish supports bases. Now it's actually on the bases. It's on the bases roadmap, which is different than the Obsidian roadmap, by the way. So if you're used to going to obsidian.md/roadmap, you can actually see like what the team is working on inside of the bases feature. Because bases is so big, they actually have their own roadmap for the bases feature where they're going to add additional views and things like that. So two different views, like I mentioned. There's the cards view here, and then there's the list view, which the best way to show this, or the table view, is actually probably to open up a demo note here. Let's see, do I have no untitled bases yet? So let's just create a new base, and then I'll get into the specifics of the book's ratings. I also have one other database, or one other base example, which may be helpful on how I used it to create an on this day widget at the bottom of my daily notes. So let me know in the chat if that's something that would be of interest. So when you create a new base this way, this is actually the base file. You can see it's got this little base moniker in the file explorer. That indicates that it's a base, and it's showing all of the files that match the criteria. Now, I have no filters set up, so it's literally showing all 52,453 notes that I have in my Obsidian Vault. That's kind of useless, to be honest. So you have to start adding some filters. So let's just rebuild the book one just to show you how this looks, where file path contains, and then we'll do book notes. All right, and if I apply that, now we've got 222 results. Okay, now the other cool, one of the other cool things about this is that you can, with the table view specifically, you can choose what sort of properties you want to show up here. So if I wanted to see all of the file embeds, here's all of the PDF files. Oh, that one doesn't exist for some reason. Looks like I had some issues with the PDFs. I may have to go back and fix some of those. But so those are the file embeds. You can create different columns for the different things. Actually, let's just do this. Let's do year, pages, author, cover. Those are all the files. Okay, so you can kind of see there's all these different properties that you can add here. So this is the table view, and then you've already seen the card view. If you wanted to add a new card view, you just go over to add new view, select cards, and then this is what it looks like. So what you have to do if you want to recreate the card view that I had is you would have to, go over here, configure the view, select the image property, which I think is cover. Yep. Okay, so there's the covers. choose the aspect ratio that you want, and then you can also from here choose the properties that you want to show up. So we're in the card view now. So if I wanted to see, let's see, I think I had rating, author, pages, and year. All right, so something like that. Yeah, and you can build this with a lot of different things. Actually, one of the people in my community, we had an Ask Me Anything yesterday, and we ended up talking about bases, of course, and he was showing how he built this using to show his video game library, which was pretty cool. He collects a whole bunch of classic video games, so you could sort the different views. He had them by system, so he had one for Nintendo 64, one for Sega Genesis, stuff like that. So any sort of collections, I feel like bases is actually pretty cool. So that's one way that you can add bases. Let's close this. I'll just create a new note here. Whoops. Obsidian may have frozen on me. Looks like it did. I'm going to have to restart the app. Sorry about that. All right, Obsidian. Quit. This does occasionally happen for me because I have so many files inside of Obsidian. All right, there we go. Go back to this view. Okay. Let's just create a new tab here and create a new note. You can also, in the contents of a note, you can embed a base. Okay, so you could do this from the command palette as well. So side note here, one tip that I find helpful, whenever you add a new plugin in Obsidian, one of the best ways to figure out what that plugin can do is to hit Command P and start typing out the name of the plugin. So with bases, I can just start typing bases. You can see the bases options appear at the top. So if you select Insert New Base, it will create a new base, but then it transcludes it. You can see that it's got the double brackets and then the exclamation point at the beginning. So it created this new untitled one.base, and then it embedded that inside of the note. And if you, let's see, I think, oh, okay. So one other thing here, Joseph had asked how often it freezes on me. It doesn't freeze that often. Trying to think, maybe like once a week. So for someone who grew up on a Windows PC, that's pretty good actually. Definitely had that freeze up on me much more often. And to be honest, I know that I am throwing a lot at Obsidian, and I'm pretty impressed at how responsive it is most of the time. Most people are not going to have 52,455 notes inside of their Obsidian vault. So if it really was becoming an issue, what I would do to address that is I would stop having a single vault for everything. I would create separate vaults for different use cases. I like being able to connect things across different domains. One of the questions I get asked frequently is how many, like, should I just have one vault or separate vaults? And by default, I would say one vault, because then you can make these connections across the different domains, which is really important in the creative process. But if it gets to that point, I would just have a Bible Notes database and a Book Notes database and stuff like that. But so far, it really doesn't slow me down in terms of the work that I do. It just happens to freeze at inopportune times, like you saw. Okay, so you can embed a base like this. And then the other thing that you can do is you can use a code block to create a base. And this is, I think, very, very powerful. You can hit 3 backticks to create a code block, type the word base, and then 3 backticks to close it. And then you've got, your base embedded. So when you click the code button now, you can see the code that applies to this base. And then any sort of filters or the properties that you would want viewed, or default views, things like that, that actually gets added to the code as well. So if I wanted, the same thing, file path contains book notes, then this is what the this is what the code block looks like. So it actually updates the code for you as you edit the interface, which I think is kind of handy. So that's what I did for the on this day base, which we can certainly take a look at if that's of interest. But to go back to the book ratings database, I'll just walk through all of the stuff that I've got set up here. So these are the properties that I have chosen to use: the file name, the rating, the author, the pages, and the year. The filters is just that one for the one view. File starts with book notes, but if you wanted to create another view, for example, let's see, can I duplicate this view? Yes. Okay. So let's call this one 5-star books. Okay. So we'll keep everything else the same, and then we'll add an additional filter just for this view. Okay. Where the rating, and this is my rating, is, and then 5 stars. Okay, so you can see what that did now. There's only 65 results, and I can see all of my 5-star books in one place. You could also do this for pages are greater than 200 pages, or books published in the last 10 years. There's lots of different things that you can use for these filters, which are actually pretty powerful. You can sort them different ways too. So you can sort them, actually you can combine these things. So let's go back to the normal card view here. And right now it's sorted alphabetically. That's kind of the default, but let's sort by actually rating. And we'll do this. A to Z, we don't want the lower ones at the top. We want the 5-star ones at the top. All right, so we'll do that. And then maybe we add another one here for, let's see, pages. And we'll go, whoops, in descending order. So what this is doing now is it's showing the longest 5-star books first, and then it shows them in descending order. If we had things where these values were the same, we could add another condition, but you kind of can stack these conditions on top of one another in these views, which is actually kind of cool. And if you don't like these sort orders, then all you have to do is just delete them. These sorts, however, apply to the active base. So if I wanted to sort something, for a different view, those sort options I don't believe are going to be carried over. Yeah, see, they're not going to be carried over. So you have to set those on the individual views. But yeah, this is pretty cool. So this is neat because I have a whole bunch of notes and a whole bunch of content already that I can view in a collection. But there's lots of other really cool applications of bases that maybe aren't quite so obvious. So I think what I'll do next is I'll walk through the on this day base that I mentioned previously. So, well, let's just go straight to this in the. Actually, let me see if I have the demo base here first. Okay, so on this day, yep, here's the base. All right, so what this is the actual base file. As I was putting this together, I started with just having the base. So I can't actually see the code of what I would make here. But what this does is it really just has a filter where the folder is the daily notes. I haven't done anything else with this yet. Now with the properties, so right now it just has the daily note that's being shown. But you can create a function. So let me see on this day. Yeah, so what this does, this is a formula. This formula, if you get into this actually does not exist as a property. This is just a formula that you can apply to the base itself. So you can add your filters and then you can create these without creating additional metadata listings on your notes. So this property uses this formula, which I got this from an Ed Nico YouTube video. So I'm not actually a programmer. I don't know how to write this from scratch. Obsidian does offer some great documentation. So I'm using basically this example right here and then some of the stuff from the documentation, I was able to cobble together something different, but I want to just explain what this does first. This is kind of foundational. So what this formula is doing is it's looking at the date and the month of the file names. And because all my files are named in the year dash month dash day format. So YYYY dash MM dash DD. Okay, so it's comparing what it sees in the file names to specific values from the system time. So as I look at this right now, this is the formula that's being applied. If date now, so the month, if that matches the month from the file and the date, like the day value matches the day value from the file, then it's going to return true. Otherwise, if either of those are not a match, it's going to return false. So what you see here on this day is a whole bunch of false values. Although if I wanted to sort this, I could click on this, okay, with a couple of true ones. Now the true ones, these are applying to the notes from this day, 2021, 2022, 23, 24, and 25. So that's the one that's literally for today as I record this. So what you can do then with this base, maybe you kind of know where this is going, you can filter this, right? So filter where that, let's see, on this day value, that function that we just created there, is true, okay? And then, so now it's just showing all of the notes that are on this day right now. But there's a couple issues I have with this. First, this updates dynamically. So whenever you look at this table, it's going to return the values for today. So if I come back to this exact same note tomorrow, it's going to show me all the notes that match July 24th, not July 23rd. So it's not really a historical on this day feature like you would see in day one, for example, which is really the inspiration behind this feature for me. So right away, that's not exactly what I want. And then it's also showing the daily note from today, which if I'm actually going to apply this as a on this day feature, that's really not that useless. Today's not over yet. So that's usually the daily note that I would be at when I'm looking at this, if I was able to add this to my daily note template. So I wanted to remove that as well. So that's what I did. The way I did this is through templates. So I've got a daily notes template, and I can share this if people are interested. I got a whole bunch of these custom callouts, literally a memento mori section, which shows how much of my life has passed. My daily Bible reading, daily affirmations, the tasks that are due today, some habits I'm tracking, the words that I've written using the Keep the Rhythm plugin. I do daily questions, journaling, gratitude, wins, etc. But then here is the base that I've embedded here. Now this is the code. So going back to this untitled note here, where we had the code inside of it. Basically what I did is I tweaked it till I got it just the way that I wanted it. And then I copied all of this code and put it in my daily notes template. So here's what this is doing. It's showing a base. The filters are the files in the folder daily notes. The formula I'm using on _this_day. If the date file name.month equals, and then this is a date token right here. So the double curly brackets, date : month, that is actually going to be replaced with the month of the daily note that this code exists on. Okay, so it's looking for that. It's also looking for the date file.name.day to equal the date token. So again, curly brackets, double curly brackets, date : dd. And then if the date file name.year does not equal, and then there's a date : year. So this is the token for that. Now, the equals, this is for values that you want to match. And then the exclamation point equals, this is what you use if you want the value to not match. So basically, if the month matches, if the day matches, and if the year does not match, then include those files in this base. Okay, and then there's properties, file.name, display name, daily note. So I'm changing what that looks like. the view is on this day. Here's the filter, the formula.on_this_day .contains, and then this is the value we want, true, inside of parentheses. We're ordering it by file name. It's sorting by descending file name order, and it's being displayed as on this day. So when I create a new daily note, this is what it looks like. Let's create one for, well, 24th already exists, but here's the 25th. Okay, so here's a daily note. Everything gets appended with those date tokens. And then here are the daily notes for descending order, 7/25, 2024, 23, 22, and 21. So lots of really cool stuff that you can do with these bases. Are there any other questions that people have about bases? I'm happy to go into some of this stuff. I know that we had talked about building the book ratings base, so I'm going to jump back here and maybe if anybody has any questions about this specific base, happy to dive into that. The hard part for this for me was just simply transferring everything over. The bases part of this is actually pretty straightforward. Hopefully you're starting to see that bases doesn't have to be super complicated, super complex. And I think the thing I really need to be careful of with bases is not to overuse it. Use it where it makes sense, but don't try to recreate other functionality inside of bases. One thing that's kind of cool about this, if I were to create another view here, like like the 5-star books, for example, and let's actually change this to a table view because this is going to be easier to see then. All right, so here's all of the stuff from the table. When you have a view inside of bases set up like this, and it's got these filters applied, when you add a new note to this base with these filters, all of the things that you have pre-filled in the filter automatically get applied to the new note. So it's kind of like using the templater plugin. Let me give you an example. Let's add another filter where the year equals, and we'll say 2019. All right, so there's only 2 books that I have here, 5-star books that were published in 2019. When you add a new note here, though, what this does is it applies all that stuff from the filter. So you'll see this new note. Okay, so here it is, Untitled 1. And you can see it pre-populates the rating and it pre-populates the year because that is what was selected by the filters. All right, and for some reason it's not showing up here, but if I were to force a reload, I'm guessing it probably will. As I mentioned, bases is still a beta feature, so yeah, it's not showing up either. The file did get created though. I'll show you that in the file explorer here once it actually loads. So I created, I think it was Untitled 1. Yep, so here's the rating and here's the year. Still are a few rough edges with the bases plugin, but this is available to Catalyst supporters right now, and for the most part, I think it's really powerful, and it's actually kind of crazy how quickly it filters things. When I create a new base, it shows all 52,000 files within a split second. So that's actually pretty cool, in my opinion. Okay, I'm just going to change this back to, let's make this the card view again. And then I'll answer Blake's question here. So let's throw that up there in the corner using eCam. What is the definition of bases? Is it a new feature of Obsidian? Yes, it is a new feature of Obsidian. It's actually not available yet to all Obsidian users. You have to have the insider releases. It's I'm using 1.9.6. Okay, so in order to get the early access versions, you have to be a Catalyst supporter. That's $25 a year, I think, in order to get access to those features. Basically what they do is they roll out these beta features, and then usually a couple weeks later, they roll them out to the general public. If you don't like living on the edge though, and you need Obsidian to work flawlessly, then you're not going to want to use these insider builds. But for the most part, these are way more stable than like iOS betas that people are using right now. Yeah, so that's how you get access to them. And then with bases, it's actually a core plugin. So what you would do is you would go to the settings, you would go to core plugins, and you would toggle on bases, which you can see right here. The feature definition is create bases by querying note properties. Now there are no specific settings for this. Okay, there's no gear icon for this particular plugin. It doesn't show up in the core plugins list. This is just a feature that once you turn it on, you can add bases into your Obsidian Vault. You can embed them inside of notes, and you can use those codes to create the bases view that you want. What this gives you is sort of Notion style database features inside of Obsidian, and that's kind of cool. But it doesn't require that everything be a base, which I think is kind of neat. So essentially what it's doing is it's looking at all your notes for the notes that match certain criteria. But that's the foundation of bases, is that it's still all just plain text markdown files. Anybody here familiar with the Canvas feature? That's another one that's like extended functionality that's been added to Obsidian, but it's not really trying to get you to go in a different direction. It's designed in a way that like layers on top of the plain text markdown formatted notes that you already have. I've got some different canvases, like for example, that's actually not a good one. Let's see. Okay, so this is just, I use this for a screencast I did for Screencast Online, just showing the different functionality. You can actually just drag in a URL onto a canvas, and then it'll render that on here. It's basically like an infinite canvas inside of Obsidian. And from here, you can drag in code blocks, or you can drag in notes. So let me see if I've got a good example here for, I think I had some Canvas, yeah, the Obsidian email sequence, for example. What this did is actually helps me lay out the email sequences that I was building. So these are actual notes that I dropped in here as cards. Here's a welcome sequence, and then here's a creativity flywheel sequence. The contents of the card show the what you see in Canvas. That's actually from the contents of the card itself. If you edit this, it actually shows up on the card. But this helps me kind of lay out, get more value out of your Obsidian notes, and then the different emails that I wanted to send. And then what this does is it helps you kind of lay things out and understand things spatially. But you can go beyond just notes that have contents. Another example of this, I teach a concept called the PKM Stack. I actually have a hybrid cohort that's in the... this got kind of messed up. Let me see. PKM Stack. Yeah, a bunch of my image files looks like they're messed up here, but let me just delete these for now. Yeah, so what happened here, I was using Canvas Candy, and it looks like some of that CSS from a recent update got messed up. But what this does is it kind of lays out the, whoops, I don't want to do that. I just want to resize this a little bit. There we go. And there we go. All right. So this basically represents the different buckets that things would fall into in my PKM system. One of the things that I walk people through in the Practical PKM Hybrid cohort, which is in the library. So if you join the library, you actually get access to that cohort. I sold access to that cohort recently for $400, but it's $49 a month to join the library. When I had done live versions of that cohort, it was, I think the last one was $800. So I think that's a pretty good deal. Anyways, it's all about building out this PKM stack. So I believe Personal Knowledge Management, PKM, is not an app. It's a stack. You really have to have the right tools in the right places. You need to know what jobs you're hiring those apps to do. And so that's basically what this represents. The information level, that's the lowest level. Those are the things that can go in cold storage, basically. Things that just come into your world and you're really not going to do anything with them. You're just going to resolve them, basically. Ideas, these are things that you're going to make something out of. Actions, tasks, projects, routines, habits. Identity, this is your vision and values. So what happens is if you don't really think about this, you end up responding to information, I should say reacting to information from the bottom up, without any sort of thought as to what you really should be doing. But with the PKM Stack, we start with the identity level. That's the personal mission statement, or I call it the life theme. There's also a life theme hybrid cohort my wife and I do. That's also in the library. So you get access to that right away too when you join. But that's your vision, your core values. Using that as the anchor, you have a filter for the things that you engage with. And then ultimately that even trickles all the way down, the information that you consume. You don't have the FOMO. You're able to make more out of your notes and ideas. And then reflection, this is the thing that helps keep the train on the tracks. So Canvas I've used as a way to lay out the flow, and then the different apps that I use for this. That's what the colors represent. So orange is my calendaring app. I use Morgan for that. Work tasks exist in Notion. All the purple represents Obsidian. Green is MindNotes. Sketch Notes is GoodNotes. Quick Capture, that is Drafts. Video calls is Zoom. Messaging, this is probably Slack, although I don't use Slack a ton anymore. Email, I use MailMate. RSS, this is currently Readwise, but that gets to a question which I'll answer shortly in the chat. And then Archive is DevonThink, because if I ever need to go find something, DevonThink is a great place to do that. But that's not what you should use Obsidian for, in my opinion. Obsidian is really stuff that you want to make something new out of. So the things that go into Obsidian for me are really the mental Lego bricks, or I use it for journaling, obviously, as you see there. You can also use Canvas for dashboards, which are kind of cool. So if I go into my habit tracking dashboard, I can actually see, I haven't done a great job of planning tomorrow recently, but reading and writing has been pretty consistent based off of the things that I check off in my daily note. So this is, instead of using contents of a note, you can actually edit this and you can put code blocks in here. So I'm using the tracker plugin, and it's just rendering, did I complete the task on that specific day? And then it's showing me the chain here. I've also got one here for daily questions. Hopefully this is up to date. Let's see, daily questions dashboard. This gets into a type of journaling that I do where I give myself a rating on did I do my best to, and I have the different areas. So did I do my best to grow spiritually, love my wife, love my kids, be a good friend, learn something, create something, or exercise. I give myself a rating, and then this is the visualizations for this. So if I go into, actually let's look at yesterday. Okay, so daily questions. I know I filled this out yesterday. Yesterday was the 22nd. There we go. All right. So yeah, here's what it looks like. This is a shortcut that I have on my iPhone actually, where it just asks me the numbers, and then it formats it and puts this code block into my daily note. So that's how that works. To answer the question about ebook files in the book ratings database. I actually don't use Obsidian for reading. You definitely could do that, I think. Ebook files, I'm not sure how those would fare in here. I think they would have to be PDFs if you wanted to read them. The PDFs work pretty well. So if I go into, let's just pick one of these books that let's see, how about, no, I don't think I have deep work in here. Let's go A Life Without Email. Nope, that one's not in here either. Let's go to the book ratings. I'll just pick one from there. Okay, book ratings base. All right, feel good productivity. You could have a PDF and it would render like this. Now, these do have the table of contents. I don't have any PDFs in here that are multiple pages probably, these, at least none that really come to mind. And then you could use the controls on this bar to navigate. So it actually would not be a great reading experience, I don't think. If I were going to read digital books, the way I would probably do it would be on a Kindle. And when I read books, I'm always reading physical books. I have a bookshelf over there with hundreds of books. We have thousands of them scattered all over our house. They're literally everywhere. And I always read a physical book and take notes on MindNote on my iPhone. So what that does is I've trimmed down basically all of the dopamine hits on my phone. If I unlock my phone, you can see what this looks like. It's just a bunch of text. And those are predetermined shortcuts which funnel me down specific paths on my phone. So because those icons aren't front and center, I don't find myself opening up social media and endlessly scrolling. It kind of pushes me in specific ways that I consider to be positive, intentional uses of the technology. So if I were going to read ebooks, I would probably get the Kindle Scribe because I like the idea of being able to highlight things there, have those pipe into Readwise. I wouldn't take notes the same way. I would probably just use Readwise for that because Readwise is a pretty great service. But I also like with the Amazon, with the Kindle Scribe, you can actually write in the ebooks that you read there. So you could actually just take notes right in line. I think that would probably be the way that I would try to do that. But for me, there is just something about reading a physical book that is better. One of the books that is in here, I believe, Reader Come Home. This is by Marianne Wolf. She is a cognitive neuroscientist. This book is basically about the differences that happen in your brain when you read on a screen versus reading a physical book. And we got to talk to her. We interviewed her for the Focus podcast a while back. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but Focus on the Relay Network. So relay.fm/focus to get to the podcast. And then maybe it was like 196. Actually, let's see. No, didn't link to it yet. But she's a really smart, really kind lady, and we talked a lot about this in that particular episode. So I've just kind of leaned into this, and that's how I got into reading in the first place. Was I was bringing a physical book with me everywhere. My kids at the time were taking piano lessons at the music store downtown, and so I'm sitting there at the piano lessons, and what's the thing you normally would do? You'd grab your phone, right, and start scrolling. So I started bringing a physical book with me, and then I found that I would, instead of doing that, I would open up the book and read a couple of pages here, a couple of pages there, and that actually led to me reading a lot more. And then as a result of that, it made all of the things that I did creatively much simpler and much more effective. So combine that with the 4 levels of reading from how to read a book, and you've got an analog recipe for making more sense of these things. Any other questions? Be happy to answer them. I know we're coming up on an hour, so we can wrap it up soon too if there are no more questions. Doesn't have to be just about the bases, the reading note space. If you have general basis questions, happy to answer those as well. I think what I'll do, if my Keynote actually finished downloading, maybe I'll open that up and share a little bit of the philosophy behind the reading question that I just answered. Let's see. Here's the reading masterclass slides. Okay. Play this presentation, put this one over here. Okay. All right, so let's open up Ecamm again. All right, and let's select, we want this to be, primary display. No, we want Keynote. See, is that the right one? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So this slide, I picked this one to start with because this highlights a very important point from a book called Liinal Thinking by Dave Gray, where we tend to just read things and consume things that confirm our biases. So what Dave Gray talks about is that our capacity for perceiving information is about 11 million bits per second. Our conscious attention, though, is limited to 40 bits per second. That's the attention piece, the little record needle there. Okay, so that is based on our experience, which is only a portion of reality. And then on top of that, we tend to build theories, conclusions, and beliefs, basically how we live our lives. And then we surround ourselves by people who sound the same, who look the same, who think the same, and we have this self-sealing bubble of belief that gets created. So I try to push back against this. He talks about how the internet is like a grocery store for facts. You can find whatever facts you want to reinforce whatever beliefs you want to have. And I try to specifically choose things that are going to challenge me. They're either going to help me reinforce my beliefs because I've wrestled with some of the objections, or I'm willing to have strong convictions lightly held. And then the basis of the way that we read, there's the 4 levels of reading here, which Mortimer Adler actually refers to reading a book like playing catch. Whoops, that didn't update, did it? Huh, why is that not updating? Let's see. Okay, well, let's try this. Where's my 4 levels of reading slide? Okay, here we go. There we go. Okay, so reading a book is like playing catch. The message is sent by the author. Skillful authors have more control over their messages, but ultimately you need to do what you can to be a skilled receiver in order to receive the whole message and then decide what you're going to do with it. So there are these 4 levels of reading. The first level is, what does a sentence say? That's elementary reading. Second level is inspectional reading. This is really where you're trying to figure out what's this book about. And then there is analytical reading, where you start to ask questions and you wrestle with the ideas, figure out what you believe about the thing. And then syntopical reading, where you are placing these books alongside other books that you've read. Let me give you an example. I never liked The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. You're probably familiar with that cue, routine, reward cycle, the little circle. And I never could figure out why until I just kind of leaned into this. And then I read Atomic Habits by James Clear, and he adds another step there where there's the temptation. Sometimes you give into it, sometimes you don't. Okay, so then from there I read Tiny Habits. Well, what determines whether you give into that temptation? He's got the whole formula behind it. So by comparing all of those 3 things, I was able to get a better, more full picture of what I actually think about the topic of habits. But you do need to force yourself to think about, what do I think about this? And then there's the whole idea of the map is not the territory. I mentioned this in the last the last live stream. Where you're figuring out what are the important things here, and you're asking yourself, what does this really mean for me? So that's kind of the philosophy behind reading books. And so I don't mind that it's a little bit more analog, a little bit more of a heavy lift, because I feel like the payoff at the end, you actually get more out of it that way. Okay, so Johnny and Youssef mentioned MindNode and Obsidian. Yeah, I don't have anything that just pipes things into Obsidian from MindNode. Maybe you didn't see this at the beginning, but the way that I do this actually is I take my notes in MindNode, I export them as a PDF, I drag that PDF into Obsidian so I have the visual for the book notes embedded in the note. And then I also will export it as a markdown file, and I'll copy all that markdown and paste it in the notes section. Once I paste it there, I also kind of top and tail those notes a little bit. I add, links where appropriate, things like that. It is a little bit of a manual process. There isn't a way to directly integrate this stuff, and kind of where I'm at right now is I'm okay with that. For a while, MindNode had a service called My MindNode, where you could create a web page and then you could embed that inside of the note. But that I don't think is around anymore. So I've basically just kind of given up on that specific thing, or that specific use case. I've just leaned into the limitations. I'm going to have a PDF. I'm going to have the MindNode or the markdown version of the notes as well, so that I can make the connections and things like that. But MindNode is really critical for that because it allows me to export stuff those two different ways. Yeah, I have some Behemoth MindNodes also. So I actually broke MindNode at one point because I have a MindNode file for Principles by Ray Dalio. And because I use my phone to capture the visuals and embed those images inside the file, the MindNode file actually got to be like 8 gigabytes in size. I think that they've since fixed it and it's not going to choke on file size like that anymore. But yeah, I did physically break MindNode at one point. But yeah, because I have the text-based versions that I can link, the size of the MindNode doesn't really matter to me. In fact, let's see, Obsidian. See if I have that. I'm pretty sure I have that MindNode file inside of my my principles note. I can try to bring that one up if you want to see what that looks like. I think at one point I did have to delete the visuals from it, which is kind of a shame. But let me see. All right, while that's loading, I'll see if there are any other questions here. Yeah, okay, so here's a good example of how ridiculous this can be. So this is still my slide. I have to change what I'm actually sharing here. Let's look at Obsidian. Okay. All right, so here is the MindNode file for Principles by Ray Dalio. It's a lot. The real value, though, is that I have the text-based version of it. I have these things like the quote that I can roll up into the quote book. And then if I had any specific things that I wanted to create links to, those would show up in the local graph as well. Question from Blake, looks like, about using bases as a CRM. Yeah, you could totally do that. In fact, let's try to build that quick. I'm going to open up actually my Life HQ base. This is one that I am working on updating, and then I will release a new version of this to people. But with this, I have this concept of the people note. So the people note has like this different made up criteria here. Okay. And then, yeah, I don't have stuff for MindNode in there yet, but I don't actually use Obsidian as a CRM. So I'll just say that right now. But you could definitely do this, because what you would do is you would create a new base. Let's see, do I have this? Okay. And we'll call this CRM, and we'll apply a filter, and we'll say file path is people. All right. And then that should, or actually let's do contains people. Starts with people. There we go. All right, so now it's showing just the people who are in there, and then we could add those properties here in the table view. I think the table view is the one that I would use for this. Card view could be nice too, but birthday, email address, whatever is actually in that file, you could use as columns inside of your table here. Tags. So I should mention that with Life HQ, these people notes, I use these tags to create these filters. So I've got, for example, in this to discuss with John, this is actually a code block that takes the first name and then shows all the tasks that are not done that I need to discuss with John, and then the tag includes John. So these are all tasks that, for example, if I'm going into a meeting with John, I can see the tasks that would show up here, and then I can get the details. I can go have the meeting, and then we can move forward with those sorts of things. Same thing with the waiting for, except this is pulling in tasks that have the tag waiting, and then also the tag for John. John is the tag that I'm using right here. And then assigned to John, these are things that I'm actually like double brackets, description includes John Smith in them. So I'm physically linking to the John Smith note. I'm rolling up all of the meeting notes for meetings with John. These sample meeting notes, if I click on this, for example, the attendees are just listed here. So I have a meeting template, where we're going to talk through things, action items, whatever. And then just by putting the attendees here, it'll roll that up into the person note. Now, when you create a new person note, it actually asks you for some of this stuff, and then it does all of the heavy lifting. So I'll do Command P, and I've got a quick add macro here. New people note, first name, Doc, last name, Rock, and the tag will say Doc. All right, so Doc Rock. Okay, so here's Doc's tag. None of the other stuff is pre-filled. To discuss with Doc, there's nothing there, nothing waiting for, nothing assigned, no meeting notes. But if I were to capture a task, again, using quick add, so task, talk to, or actually it's here, get, don't want it all capitalized, get, I'm not sure how to capitalize this, Ecamm Live Coaching, and we'll say Doc, and we'll say waiting. All right, so what this will do based on those tags, this is going to add this task actually to just a big long list of all my tasks, but it will instantly show up in this particular section because it rolls all that up automatically. So I try to make the people note be the place where like home base for everything that I might want to know about this particular person. So not exactly, a traditional CRM, but that's kind of how you could use it that way. Okay, let's see. Stefan or Steven had asked a question. I'll pull it up here about bases as a replacement for data view. Yes, long term, I think that they are going to replace a lot of what I use data view for. I don't think it's quite there yet. For one thing, there's some views that are missing that data view has, and I think data view probably has some sort of filters that you can't really recreate yet with bases, but the bases functionality keeps getting updated. So I don't think that's going to be the case for super long. I'm actually looking forward to the day when I can replace all of my data view queries with bases queries. In fact, with the people note that I just shared, the meeting notes section, you probably saw that used to be a data view query. Actually just updated that. That's not publicly available yet. I'm waiting on that Life HQ update until Bases becomes available to the public, and I've had time to really just dial in all of those filters and views, and they're just right. But yeah, that's basically just using tokens and things that I was using to create custom data view queries that I'm now using to create custom Bases code blocks. I think Bases is better because it's built in. Data view is one of those plugins that if you use it a lot, it can cause slowdown in your Obsidian vault. That's typically one of the ones that takes a while to load for me whenever I look at the log. So I think the more you can use the vanilla features of Obsidian, the better off you're going to be. Go hard on the vanilla features and they refuse to install community plugins. I think that makes sense at the beginning, especially to not go crazy with that stuff because it's easy to get overwhelmed by all of the features and the possibilities. I tell people for at least 1 week, just don't install any community plugins and then layer them in one at a time as you see specific ways that they can benefit your current workflows. But yeah, it's easy to go crazy with that sort of stuff. All right, I think that might be it for questions. So if there's anything else, feel free to pop that in the chat. But we've been going for an hour now, so probably we'll wrap up here shortly. Is everybody enjoying these live streams? Should I keep doing these? It seems like we have a decent number of people, at least the last 2 weeks that I've done this. So I'm enjoying these a lot. It's an excuse for me to use Ecamm. And That app is a lot of fun, I have to admit. So, yeah, if you have any questions or things that you'd like to see me cover in these live streams, please feel free to let me know. I'll plan on doing one next Wednesday, but I don't have a topic yet. So cool. Glad that you like them, Bill. And if you do like this and you want more direct support, I guess, with Obsidian, check out my community. As I mentioned, it's library.practicalpkm.com. $49 a month, paid quarterly, and you get access to everything. So the Done For You Life HQ that I kind of walked through a little bit, all my cohorts, all my courses, plus all of the additional like accountability live streams. So those actually happen in Zoom. Everybody's got their own box. We can have more dialogue about these kinds of things. Live streaming is a little bit weird to me still, but really enjoying it and plan to keep on doing it. Cool. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions, so we'll wrap it up there. But thanks again, everyone, for being on, making this fun. And we will talk to you next week. Have a great day.